Practical instructions in harmony. On the Pestalozzian or inductive system, teaching musical composition and the art of extemporizing interludes and voluntaries by A.N. Johnson. Interludes and voluntaries. Extemporizing interludes and voluntaries is in reality composing music. Consequently, precisely the same course of study is necessary that is required to learn to write music. At least, the most thorough method for learning to extemporize well is to learn to write music well, or in other words, to study this book through just as it is. If, however, the student wishes to attend only to those departments of the subject of harmony which have a direct bearing upon the subject of extemporizing interludes and voluntaries, he can observe the following directions. On page 23, 2 chords only are used, but each measure may be said to form a complete interlude. As soon as these 2 chords are learned, invent other interludes with them, and as fast as new chords are learned, invent interludes which shall include them. In all places where the direction is given to compose tunes and pieces, invent interludes and voluntaries instead. As soon as the invention of interludes is commenced, read the remarks on cadences on pages 143 and 205, and always close with a perfect or a plagal cadence. After becoming familiar with major and minor common chords, study chapter 43 and introduce passing notes in the invention of interludes. In all places where the direction is given to examine the music, as on page 106, examine written interludes and voluntaries instead, noticing the chords and passing notes which compose them. Explanation. A knowledge of harmony consists in an acquaintance with all the chords into which the tones of the scale can be combined, and a familiarity with the effect produced by their various progressions. Experience in teaching has proved that the most familiar acquaintance with the rules is insufficient to enable the pupil to write correctly or fluently. A course of mental discipline seems necessary to impress the principles of harmony upon the mind, and impart a familiarity with the effects produced by the different chords and progressions, which is as indispensable to the musical composer as a familiarity with the signification of words is to an author. The course contained in this work is intended to discipline the mind and impart a knowledge of the subject not by rules and principles to be committed to memory, but by progressive exercises which must be worked out. Before commencing this study, students must be familiar with the elementary principles of music. Those who have studied Thoroughbass, see pages 207 and 208, can omit the first 9 chapters and commence with chapter 10. Where it has been necessary to use terms connected with the elementary principles, the expressions common in the church music books published in Boston and New York have been employed, and the notation taught in them adopted. The paragraphs in large type partake of the nature of rules. Those in smaller type are explanations or directions. To students without a teacher, the utmost care must be used not to leave a chapter until it is perfectly understood, nor until every direction in it has been complied with. If this is done, each chapter will be but a small advance upon the previous one. If 2 or 3 chapters are imperfectly learned, it will be almost impossible to proceed farther. In the explanations, it is taken for granted that all that has been explained in previous chapters is remembered. If the student is required to do anything which is not explained in the chapter he is studying, it is because it has been explained previously. And if they have forgotten it, they must review the chapters which they have already studied.